Ni hao, Beijing. Hey guys, how's it going? This is me, Gavin Wood, giving you a small talk from Sweden for your Polkadot Beijing April meetup. Yeah, it's been quite a year so far, and I think we've got a lot more interesting events to come yet. I want to give you a quick update on Parachains and Rococo. We're currently on a retreat here in lovely Stockholm. Myself and a few of the other coders from the Polkadot project are here to try to put the final touches onto the various bits of code that are needed to launch Parachains, not least the Parachains core itself, but also some of the networking stuff and some of the runtime stuff. And it's proving to be very useful time. We're getting a lot done. We're managing to squash a number of the reliability bugs that you've seen on the Rococo, the earlier versions of the Rococo testnets. We actually launched a testnet a few days back with some of the more recent changes, and we expect to launch another one in the not too distant future. Overall, things are looking a lot more reliable and robust on the Rococo testnet. I think it's got 5 parachains on now, but when I last checked yesterday, there was 4, and it was looking very much more reliable in terms of a fairly consistent 12-second block time for the parachains. Yeah, this is getting to the point where we're reasonably happy to release for Kusama. It's not going to happen quite yet because there is one other fairly significant bug in the availability distribution system, which we want to squash, but I do expect it to happen in the fairly near future. We're going to be in Stockholm for another week yet, trying to put the rest of the work in to get to that launch point. So let's see how that goes over the next few days. We actually had our first auction on Rococo a couple of days ago, which was notably won by the Mandala testnet there, the Akala team. So congrats to them. And Plasm managed to pick up the second auction. The crowd loans palette is also enabled. So and we've seen some of the crowd loans actually happen there as well. So that's great. All in all, things are starting to look pretty close to the point that I'm comfortable pulling the trigger and getting it out on Kusama. So pending further testing on Rococo and this bug, I think that we're getting very close. I would say probably days rather than weeks before launching on Kusama. First thing that we'll be launching, of course, will be a system parachain, very much likely to be the statement parachain. So this is designed to be a sort of largely featureless parachain for placing assets that don't have any special on-chain mechanisms. At the moment, we have a fungible assets palette in there. Perhaps not by launch, but soon after, there will be a non-fungible assets palette in there as well. But not much more. I don't expect it to be very featureful, but useful for people that just want to basically mint a bunch of tokens that don't do anything other than be. The number of parachains on Kusama to be maybe 30 to 40 in the first year. So that amount of auctions perhaps. This is I can't emphasize enough, this is very much dependent on how robust and reliable the code is. We're not going to push out parachains that we know are going to break Kusama. But assuming that we don't have any issues that we can't squash reasonably quickly, then that's the sort of number of chains that I would expect to see in the first year. Could be a little more, could be some less, but yeah, that's the sort of numbers. The sort of number of chains that I would want to see functioning robustly, reliably on Rococo before we start launching on Kusama, probably about 10. So if we can get Rococo to 10 parachains, all working very smoothly, then I'm reasonably happy to start deploying that into Kusama. And as further optimizations come in, once we sort of get that Parachains V1 code done, then I would expect to see an increasing number of Parachain slots out for auction, and properly 6-second block time. So yeah, I mean, NFTs, bit of a hot topic at the moment. We've seen a lot of we've seen some high value auctions of NFTs. We've seen some fairly successful NFT platforms. We've seen some artists and sort of well-known media figures get into the idea of NFTs, of sort of releasing their own. I've even heard about NFTs from people utterly unrelated to the blockchain industry. So I think it's definitely a growth area there, and it'll be very interesting to see how that unfolds over the next year or two. I mean, this is something that obviously has been around for longer than the last few months, but CryptoKitties, what was that, like 2016? Maybe 2017, I don't know. But nonetheless, the idea of real world reputation, sort of big media figures actually getting into NFTs, of it really turning mainstream is pretty new, and I think it's definitely a wave that Polkadot can ride. It's not something that we in the core developer team are necessarily going to be putting a lot of our effort into. I think this is definitely something for the Parachain teams, for the community of developers within Polkadot, within the Polkadot ecosystem to address, and I think it's already being addressed to some degree already. I would like to support this in ways that make sense. So as I mentioned before, getting a non-fungible assets palette into statement would be one way that we would hope to support this. But I don't think it's really at this point. I don't see much to do beyond provide that kind of central low feature point for NFTs to collect around. I think there will be NFT parachains being launched anyway that are going to provide much more interesting sets of features for NFTs, and I do think there are probably already teams out there that expect to be setting up marketplaces and exchanges for NFTs. And this isn't something that we really need to get into, but Parity and Web3 Foundation, and of course the Polkadot and Kusama councils can help bring this important innovation to the Polkadot ecosystem. I think we will try. Yeah, and I mean, this isn't something that's been off the radar by any stretch. The original version of the XCM message format, which I wrote up 6 months ago at least now, I think maybe even longer, included non-fungible assets as part of its specification. This is something that XCM already supports in principle, and once we have the non-fungible assets palette, I think that will really complete the base level of functionality that Polkadot Core should be providing, Substrate should be providing. Yeah, I mean, I think the ecosystem is doing overall very well. Great to see so many teams, many of which are high quality, really pushing forward with their technology, really playing with Substrate and taking it through its sort of feature set, developing really interesting products. Great stuff to see. I think, and honestly, like especially in the Chinese corner of the world, like we've seeing a lot of really a lot of great teams and really a lot of thought going into how to really push the envelope. This is really more than I would have hoped for, so it's like really great to see, really great to see. In terms of like getting a prosperous ecosystem, I think it's the main thing that I'm looking to push forward with over the course of this year is a means of really allowing people to see the, as we say, the wheat from the chaff, to try and identify those high quality, really innovative teams and their products, and differentiate them, distinguish them from the teams that are maybe based a lot more around buzz and hype. And haven't too much substance to them. So, certifications and reputation systems, trying to get teams that actually, build valuable partnerships, try and sort of make those partnerships clearer, place them in a central location or several central locations or whatever for the world to see. I think this is going to be a very important cornerstone to getting good capital allocation for the crowd loans once they begin. So this is something that I would like to develop, perhaps not directly, but it's certainly something I would like to see, and perhaps guide to some degree, whether it happens within Parity or as within the community in general, perhaps sponsored by the Polkadot or Kusama treasuries. I think that would be a very good use of treasury funding. This is definitely something that I think we can do some work on, and I think it's something that'd be very valuable to the community and the ecosystem in general. Once we've got Parachains launched, there's a few other bits that need to be done. Parachains are going to launch with a basic version of XCMP, essentially just to take us to that point that was described in the Polkadot white paper way back when. I published it first in late 2016, I think it was. Yeah, late 2016. Long time ago now, right? Nearly 5 years. Crazy. And that will take us to sort of version 1.0 to launch. There's going to be work done, substantial work done on XCMP following that, trying, bringing it into this like super heavily optimized, very high bandwidth message passing bus that we need. Certainly once the ecosystem heats up and we get a lot more parachains. So that will be a big focus of the core team. In addition to that, we'll have Spree also pushing forward, Cumulus pushing forward with, as we say, contextual execution. What this basically means is that blocks don't need to complete their processing within just the initial 2 seconds following the finalization of the previous relay chain head. Basically, they can take a bit longer, and with this will facilitate pipelining, and with pipelining we should be able to reach that consistent 6-second block time for parachains. Now, there are some additional bits of technology that I would also like to see developed beyond Spree that I think sort of more or less qualifies core technology. One of them will be, and bridges, obviously. Bridges, this is also something that I think is very sort of important to the project, and we are reaching the point now where we've done a lot of auditing work. We're reaching to the point where we can confidently bring forward the bridge between Polkadot and Kusama. Very excited about this. This will also allow us to make good on our promise some time ago that 1% of the Genesis allocation, Genesis block allocation of DOT tokens will be made available to the Kusama token holders. The way this is going to happen will be basically that those DOT tokens, those, what are we on, 1 billion, so 10 million DOT tokens, will be placed directly under the Kusama treasury. So basically Kusama network will hold 10 million DOT tokens for it to do what it wants. We'll see how that plays out, but I mean, the Kusama treasury already has a fairly large chunk of capital in it in the form of KSM tokens. So yeah, I'm not sure how exactly that will play out, but we'll see. So beyond bridges, I would like to see some other things. We're probably going to move into an area of technology that will allow a sort of hybrid mechanism, a sort of hybrid security system between a bridged chain, which isn't secured at all, and a parachain, which is obviously as secure as the relay chain. into a sort of a hybrid system that's based on security challenges and challenge periods, which will introduce latency to this chain. So it's going to be there's going to be sort of additional message times are going to be fairly long, like maybe several minutes, possibly even up to an hour. But that latency will buy a large amount of security from the relay chain, and this is going to be quite an interesting proposition. I mentioned it before, and these kinds of secure bridges or secure solo chains, and this is something that beyond XCMP, beyond Spree, I would like to see developed, and that's maybe something that the core team at Parachain will be taking on. Developing the XCM message format, making it more general, making it more useful to teams who want to work beyond NFTs and sort of fungible currencies. This is also something that we'll be spending some time on. Yeah, well, that's more or less all I have to say for now. I hope you enjoyed the update. It's a real shame that I can't be there in person. I would really have liked to have been. Yeah, it's not so easy to travel the globe right now, I'm hoping that travel restrictions will lighten up later this year, and that will help me coming to see you in person. I do very much look forward to visiting, and maybe in the summer it can happen. Until then, keep developing, keep innovating, keep pushing forward, and let's keep your eyes open. It should be a really interesting next month or two. 再见. Bye bye.